Okay, cool. Awesome. So we are going to get started on our last little bit. This is kind of fun because it's like, how do you actually lead groups? Because we've taught you a lot about how to plant trees, how to prune trees, and that is, like we all know from that manager we've had at one point or another, technical skill is not the same as managing people skill, right? So that can be helpful to go over some of those basics. So this is going to be a little bit more informal. Please let me know if you have any questions just as we're going. Because what we really want to talk about is how do we lead groups with a little bit of a review of what we've done and kind of really, I mean, the main thing I want you to take home from all of this is that your goal is to plant trees, sure. Your real goal is to help the volunteers have a good experience and be willing to come back, right? Like you want people to leave feeling good about what they've done, feeling good about what they've learned, feeling like they successfully contributed, that they were, helpful, right? Because like you can plant 10 trees and if like that crew of people is like never again, it will be hard to do that sustainably, right? So as we're leading volunteers, one of our major things we do want to be thinking about the whole time is you guys get your kind of eyes on the prize of safety. There are a lot of different things that can go a little bit funny, and especially when we're working with really excited volunteers or sometimes, not to be biased, but young volunteers, people get real excited and are going to do all the things, and you have to be like, you need water. Like, you need to take a break occasionally. So a lot of what we'll be talking about is safety and then kind of how that actually plays out. So when we think about safety, one of our first ways that we're going to think about that is the site itself. You guys will, if you're leading a tree planting, so there will be trees laid out or there will be sites selected and you will go to that site and it is really worth taking a look around before anyone else kind of gets going and saying like, what's going on at this site? Are we on a tiny narrow planting strip where despite the fact that we are wearing brightly colored vests, it's still good to like keep telling the volunteers to get out of the road, right? Are we on a site where there might be heavy machinery or dangerous trash nearby? Right? Unfortunately, in some of our parks and some of our other areas, you will still run into needles, you'll still run into that kind of stuff. It's good to just scan the ground. If you see something, just tell people to keep a little bit of distance. Heavy machinery and other kind of work can sound crazy, but like I have given a class in this building before when we were getting work done on the building, and I watched a student go under the caution tape so they could get a better view of what we were doing. I was like, I love your enthusiasm, that's not how caution tape works, right? And so it's just good to like kind of like gently, with a little bit of humor, redirect someone, right? Like you don't want to call them out, but kind of redirect. Looking out for uneven ground, things like poison ivy, high traffic, all of these things, just keeping your eyes out, right? Like you're trying to teach people how to plant a tree, but this is like, if you've had pets or kids, right, where you're kind of also scanning the environment to be like, what's coming for us? What do we not see that's about to eat us or bite us or do whatever it is to us? So just kind of be those eyes and ears for your volunteers. As you do that, some of the kind of lower stakes thing is that it is good to know like where are the restrooms? Where's the water? Where are the snacks? How do we keep people comfortable? How do we do kind of all of that kind of stuff? Who's the emergency contact? Right? So if you're out with your small group, who do you reach out to if something does happen? Right? And the folks at Keep Durham Beautiful and the city are wonderful and they will like provide you with that sort of information. They'll give you all of that. You just need to be the one who like has the presence of mind to be like, wait, I do know that number. I can call that person. As you're out from a safety perspective, other things that the city and Keep Durham Beautiful will provide for you is they do have their fancy vests that we got to wear last time that we all looked real good in, right? Sort of fluorescent affair. They're very, very helpful. They will also provide a lot of tools and other kind of paraphernalia that you need. It sounds really obvious, but being safe with our tools can be something that not everyone is always super aware of. When you put a shovel down, put it pointy end down, right? Like we have all seen Wile E. Coyote walk into a rake. Like we don't need that experience. So thinking about putting your tools down, especially if you have younger volunteers, being a little bit gentle with them or reminding their parents that maybe we should not be like sword fighting with our tools or doing anything like this, right? Like I've been on a tree planting where I watched a 4-year-old just whack a car with the side of the shovel. The car was fine because he was only 4 and kind of weak, But, it's like one of those things where it's just kind of being aware of what's going on in your surroundings. He seemed like he was having a great time. He seemed like he would come back. So that was good, but yeah, so for digging holes, this can be a really important one. I am not the best at lifting with my legs. I am someone who constitutionally wants to lift with my back. Like, that is in my heart. I am finally getting to the point where that's catching up with me, but if you see someone straining or struggling, or if you see someone who's kind of maybe not doing something in a way that seems particularly safe, it's okay to gently say, like, hey, do you think there's a better way to do that, or do you mind if I step in, or do you mind if I show you how to do that? I am also the kind of person who, and I will admit this, will try to solve a problem with the fewest number of steps, even if that means I'm using the wrong tool, or I didn't move the position that I should have, or whatever. And because I'm just like, I gotta do the thing, right? And you're like, if you took 2 steps to your left, that would have been significantly easier. And I'm like, no, I'll die right here. It's fine. So, just kind of gently keeping an eye on things and seeing how people are feeling and how they're doing. And if there's a way even to say, like, hey, sometimes you ask if people want help and they go no, and they're real snitty about it. But it's worth asking. And it's worth just kind of being that gentle voice of reason. When you're lifting trees, they're smaller. A lot of these container trees that we have are smaller, but they can still be heavy, especially if they've been watered recently and the soil is wet. It's better to just lift with 2 people than 1, if it's at all possible. There is no pride in how many trees you can carry by yourself, right? No one gets a gold star for that at the end of the day. And sometimes it can be really fun to carry them together because you get to have your little grade school moment, right? It's real cute. So with some volunteers, like I was saying earlier, sometimes you will get, if I say, do you need help? I'll get a no. Say, I know you don't need help. Would you like help, right? And all of a sudden you can get someone to soften a little bit, a lot of times if you just reframe it. As you're out, having ways to keep people kind of, one of the descriptions I always really liked is it's focused fun. Ways to get the group kind of reoriented in a way that everyone knows. Most of us know some version of, speaking loudly, people start listening. If all else starts failing, there is a teacher in your group who wants you to say, who wants you to clap so that they can clap back at you, right? There are people in your group who want that, right? That's deep in their hearts, right? So doing those kind of call and answer things you remember from grade school. When you're speaking, you do need to be louder than you think you need to be. And always encourage people to ask if they can't hear you. And one of the best ways to do that, so the thing that's interesting about that is if I say to a group like this, hey, if you can't hear me, raise your hand. Someone in the back row probably can't hear me and is nervous. And they're not going to raise their hand, right? The nervous introverts amongst us are just going to sit there and be like, what? And they're going to keep their hands down and not do it. But so what we did the first day of class is I had you guys all go around and say your name and share something about yourselves. I gave you a really clear way to speak in the group, to say something in the group, and to start communicating, right? So it can be really helpful when you get together in your own small groups. It can sound so cliche, but to do that, hey, let's all go around and say our name and one thing we're excited about. And that sounds cliche, but you might actually get to learn someone's name. If you forget someone's name, just keep asking. Just keep asking. No one's offended. No one's bothered. You just keep asking, okay? And also, they have now spoken to you. So they've done it once already, so it's going to get easier each time, right, for them to come up and speak to you. So just kind of breaking the ice very, very intentionally is really helpful. As you're working in small groups, it can be difficult to make sure everyone is engaged, especially because we all have different ability levels. But I would also kind of, some people will shock you, right? I work with a volunteer group all the time that is shocking me in terms of what people can accomplish. Just really, really talented, very strong, agile people. And so let people surprise you and also keep an eye on folks. And if they look like they need a break, I like to do almost enforced breaks, right? Because what's going to happen is if you say okay, if you need water, take it. no one takes water. They keep working, right? Or like one person takes water and everyone else keeps working and secretly thinks that that person's like not working that hard. Say like, when we're done planting this tree, we're gonna take a water break. And you go get a water, open it, and stand there, right? Like you have to model that behavior too. Because otherwise it can be very, very difficult for anyone to ask for it. Asking how folks are doing, if groups are too big, you can very easily see if there's another group that needs help. If groups are too small, asking for help on behalf of that group. Saying, hey, we need another person, or hey, this isn't working quite right. Different people within the group are gonna have different skills. There might be someone who's really, really good at looking up and down the tree and seeing, does it have any debris or does it need any light pruning? And there's probably a different person who just really wants to get in there and dig that hole, right? Letting people do what they wanna do and also helping them trade tasks when it's time can be really, really helpful. It's good to have in the back of your mind tasks that might be slightly more introvert focused and tasks that might be slightly more extrovert focused. Like if you have 2 or 3 people digging the hole together, that's great. And if you have one person who seems like they're kind of here for the trees, they might be a good pruner and doing that kind of stuff, right? Like letting people work to their skills. As you're working, and I'm just gonna say this again and again, thank people for what they're doing and their contributions pretty continuously. It can feel kind of awkward, and it can feel like pretty rah-rah, and frankly, people like it. Like they do, right? Like they like a cheerleader, and everyone's gonna do that a little bit differently. Everyone's gonna look different when they're doing that role, but people like being thanked. They like being told they're doing a good job. They like someone who's a little bit over the top about that, because it feels good, right? Like it's more fun than like if you show up to volunteer and the whole thing's kind of dour and then like you leave and you're like, well, I guess that was that, right? Someone who's like telling you you're doing a great job, in general for most of us feels pretty good. Okay, so when we're actually planting the tree, and this is gonna be a little bit of review, remember, you're gonna get out there, you're gonna have trees out, they're probably gonna be at flags or at other marked locations. When you're digging that hole, how wide do we want the hole? Do you remember?
2 times.
Yeah, 2 times. 2 times is wide. It could be more. I like your ambition. It could be less, right? Like don't kill anyone over that either, right? And sometimes planting spaces are very, very small. You're trying to get it as wide as possible. You are certainly trying to get it, or as wide as possible up to like 2 times. You are certainly trying to get it wider than the root ball, right? You're trying to give it at least a little bit of room to grow out. How deep should it be?
So that the root flare is flush with the ground.
Yeah, right? Remember?
That's
Great. Okay, so yeah, so the root flare, remember, comes out, goes like this. Sometimes you might even have to dig a little bit in the tree you get to find that root flare to uncover it, and that should, exactly, it should be flush with the ground. And if I have to make a choice to have it a tiny bit up or a tiny bit down, up, right? Sometimes you can get to a point where it can just be hard to go any deeper. That can be really, really hard. But if you put it in and it's a little bit low, you throw soil back in the bottom of that hole and you stomp it down because you don't want it to sink back down as that soil is settling. As you're digging that hole, make sure you also are roughing up the edges. You don't want to be planting essentially into a clay pot, right? So you want to plant the tree and then you want to go back through with your shovel and score the sides of the hole to really help with that. On the root ball, this can be a good job for probably one person, but it can be more than one person. You can have one person on just opening up the root ball, right? So remember when we did our demonstration, we had that dogwood. It was in fairly good shape, but part of what I did was I had gloves on and I took my hands and I kind of really scored the sides of it. And then also I kind of started working my hands around inside the root ball as best I could to try and find girdling roots, any roots that were circling back in on the tree and could pose a problem long term. You also typically can look at the top of the root ball, right around the trunk flare, and that's where you can also see girdling roots sometimes because there'll be some of the top roots that have circled back around. It is better to cut a root, even if it's large, than to leave it girdling, right? Because at the point where it's circling back in, it's not going to come back out really, like that will just sit there and get bigger and bigger, okay? So having someone sitting there really breaking up the root ball, cutting girdling roots, untwisting if it's a little bit better is nice, okay? You're gonna want that person to also basically be removing all tags and trash. If it's a tag that is the kind that's kind of adjustable, I like to leave it kind of loosely hung on a minor branch, just so we know what the tree is. I certainly don't want a tag left, right, tightly cinched around the trunk, right? I take that off, I move it loosely to a minor branch. You can prune any broken branches at that point. It's a really good time to do it. We're probably not going to be staking trees, right? That's typically not something people are doing as much anymore. The woman who used to help me teach this, I just loved, she made the comment, she's like, trees don't run away. You don't need to stake them, right? So what it is it's just when you put that tree into your nicely prepared hole, it's a good time to step back, make sure it's actually at the right level. It is also straight up and down. And especially for when you're right up against streets, when you're right up against sidewalks, making sure that those branches are not directly pointing into the street or the sidewalk if at all possible. Sometimes you can kind of adjust the tree so that the branches are pointing more along the planting strip than straight out into the street or sidewalk. For larger maturing trees, remember all those lower branches will eventually get trimmed off, so it's important, but it's not as important for small maturing trees like redbuds and dogwoods. Those lower branches are actually going to stay with the tree for most of its life because it's not going to get huge. And so that's especially where it's important that if you have a major branch, you would rather have it running in the planting strip than in the street or the sidewalk. Does that make sense?
Can I just ask about stakes?
Yeah.
Did I hear you correctly that we're not going to stake future trees?
We don't do much staking anymore, at least in the plant. Do you guys do staking?
Not on the day of planting unless it's like significant meaning. Most of the time they come with like these bamboo stakes
Yeah.
built in and like tied on really tightly, so we usually take those off and take the stakes back with us. But if there are trees that we notice start to lean, like that's the kind of thing that you
Yeah.
can report during one call or let Craig and his team know and they'll go out and put like a more secure stake.
Yeah, my impression is that people are doing it much more correctively now than proactively.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
That's when they're top heavy, some of these
Yeah.
things on a windy day.
Can go wily.
On plantings where we have had to stake them to hold them off straight.
And I think that makes sense, right? Like if you know it has to be done, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think part of what I've seen is that there are so many of these trees being planted and the likelihood of the stake doing damage long term seems to be quite high, right? Like I've passed many a tree and like angrily like gotten all the stuff off of it as it's kind of girdling it, right? So yeah, that's just been what I've seen. But I think that if there's a reason to do it, you should do it. Yeah.
To this point, when we get these we get like 7-gallon trees and we go to plant them. Yeah, like you said, they have the bamboo sticks and they're tied together. Is it best practice to remove all of that and just leave the tree in the soil? Don't leave any of that stuff in there?
I don't like to leave any of that stuff myself.
Cool.
Yeah, I think our executive director, like the only thing she likes to leave is like a tag that tells the species if it's on there, you know,
Great.
put it on, like Ashley mentioned, like put it on another branch and like leave it loose. But yeah, pretty much always like we're cutting off those green tags that are trying to hang on. And if it is, you know, if it's like an especially lanky serviceberry or something, you can cut that stake off and then like re-stake it a little bit looser because those stakes are meant to keep them upright during transportation so that they don't flop over and break. They're not really meant to be there long term. But yeah, if it's super floppy, you can do a quick stake there. We usually have these little notched ties, and you just find a branch and make sure the stake is like a couple of inches away and it's loose. Did you guys go over like how trees build strength?
No, but like let's do it. Yeah, because I think that helps this conversation.
Yeah, so one of the ways that trees build strength is being able to move
Yeah.
around in the wind. Like they need a little instability because, you know, they'll be like, oh, like I'm getting a lot of pressure from this side. I need to build more cells like over on that side. Like we had a tree in neighbors got a lot of trees in their backyard cut down. The next big storm, that huge tree fell like in our backyard. So like trees need wind and things like that around to help build their strength up.
Yeah, that's a great answer to that. I think that for folks who have not had a lot of experience with trees before, the impulse in staking is to like be like, I'm gonna get in there and bind it all up, you know. And I think that like we think that the stake provides a deep like stability when they're bound closely, but just like Dawn's saying, right? We typically like those stakes actually placed further out and loose. They're like a backup plan for when the wind picks up on a really top-heavy tree to kind of help rein it back in. They're not the stability itself most of the time.
Yeah, it's like to keep it from falling flat on the ground, not
Yeah,
to keep it firmly in place for all time.
for all time, forever and ever and ever. Yeah, great comments and questions though. That's another thing too, this is a total sidebar, is that when you're leading groups, you will not know all the answers, and there will be people in your group who know more than you do. That's always true. It's just the nature of the beast. And I would be very, very open about letting other people answer and about letting other people share from their experience what works for them, even if it's the opposite of what you're saying. It's just better for the group, it's like better for being a human. And it doesn't take anything away from you as an instructor or a group leader, right? Like you do not need to have all the answers. That's what I'm really trying to tell you here. You do not need to have all the answers. You just get to be like the person who helps corral the group problem solving, right? Like that's your role, okay? So don't feel bad when someone asks you something, you're like, no clue, I got nothing. Like let's pull the collective wisdom, you know, we're gonna Google it, right? Okay. So, okay, you got your tree in the hole, you're feeling good, stakes off, other stuff's off, root ball's been opened up, girdling roots have been cut, broken branches have been cut. You've checked from both directions that it's upright, right? Because upright like this can be, right? That's how planes work, okay? So like you've checked from multiple planes that looks right, that the branches are oriented well. If you're at home, you might mix a tiny bit of compost or nice soil in with your backfill. You don't have to. You certainly don't have to. There's some argument to be said for just using the native soil that's been kind of all fluffed up and nice. When you're out on sites with Keep Durham Beautiful or the city, sometimes they will also have mulch available for you guys, so you'll want to mulch. The thing to remember with mulch is, does it touch the trunk? No, never. Right. So, you know, you kind of want to create a nice, 1 or 2 inch ring, like 1 or 2 inch deep ring. And I like to think of it almost like a donut, right? So that you have a good little clearance around the trunk so that even if some of that mulch moves in the rain or kind of sloshes around, it is still open, right? Because you're trying to more like protect the root zone than protect the trunk. Sometimes they will also give you trunk guards to help protect against overly ambitious weed whackers. So you'll have some little things like that you might have to deal with, and they'll kind of show you how all of that works. It's pretty straightforward.
Actually,
Yeah.
I had the same tree guard thought come up as you were saying it. Are they ever used to prevent like mole, mice damage?
They can be, for sure. Part of that is like they can oftentimes still get under, but they can be. If you're worried about that, I would give it a try. Do you have a mole problem? You'd have a vole problem. If it was a tree.
I don't know the land where I live well enough
Yeah.
to know that, but I just know that it might be more of an orchard tree
Yeah.
procedure than the
Right.
trees that we're talking about, but yeah, I was just.
Yeah, sometimes in orchards you will see them used around the base to help with protecting the base of the tree, and also you'll see permatil mixed into the soil because it's like this little scritchy rock product that is very unpleasant to dig through. So if you're a vole, you're like, no, I'm not digging through whatever that is. I don't care if there's an apple tree on the other side. I think that in urban environments you're using those tree guards more for weed whackers and kind of contact hits and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And just for those keeping track at home, moles eat meat, M&M. Voles are vegetarian, so if something is eating your plants, it's a vole.
Oh, can I tell you about voles?
Yeah, of course.
I might know more than other people about this because I looked it up.
I love this.
They dig holes underneath. They can hear earthworms fall into the hole. Then they go get them. They squeeze their insides out. They paralyze them and they put them in their larder. So like underground, there might be like a fridge with hundreds of dead earth, like of living but paralyzed earthworms that they use as their food source.
That's excellent for October.
That's.
It's terrifying. And also, I'm very impressed. Thank you. Thank you for sharing
I was
that.
gonna say, the Bruce Community Garden, they have the little pebbles for the bowls for the orchard trees there at Bruce
Yeah,
Community.
that's one of their major tactics.
Oh my gosh, for like any little tree you put in your yard, even if it's not a fruit tree, I do have holes.
It can help, but I mean, it's also like hard.
Those little
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
a mulch question though.
Okay.
Actually, it's a statement, and I want you to tell me if I'm correct.
Okay.
So-
So true or false?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, maybe it's an analogy. I'm just wondering, before I became tree curious, when I was just
Sure.
Walking around, I thought that mulch was similar to compost, and that it
Okay.
increases soil quality. But from what you just said, and from what I've gleaned, it's really protecting the tree, right? Protecting roots. Is that correct?
Okay.
It does both.
Yeah, both do both. Okay, so which is not helpful. So think about mulch and compost on this continuum, right? Where mulch, I can still look at mulch and I can tell that it was part of a tree
Right.
or a plant, right? Like I can look at it and I can see plant material.
Yeah.
Compost, when I hold compost in my hand, I can no longer tell what it used to be. Like maybe it was an apple core, maybe it was bark, I don't know,
Mhm.
right? I can't see that anymore. There's something even more refined we would call humus. It's fine, it doesn't matter. If I plant a tree and I can mulch with compost, I can put compost all around the base of that tree. But what's going to happen is it's going to sink down into the soil much more quickly. So it'll protect the roots, but only for a brief while, and then it'll sink down into the soil, and it will help with soil structure and other things, and kind of improve soil health. If I put mulch down, part of the goal of that mulch is that it is eventually going to break down into compost and sink down into the soil. But it exists as mulch, like that sort of barrier at the top longer. And what it does is it helps water get into the soil a little bit better. It prevents other plants from growing in that area so that you don't have competing roots. You have a bunch of other stuff, right? So does that?
It helps water get into the soil better. Oh, I thought it was actually helpful to prevent too much water seeping in.
It's more like it helps, in my mind, it provides this kind of uneven texture that's different than like if the soil is just compacted and hard and then water can run off really quickly, right? It provides this uneven texture where the water can come in and kind of percolate in a little bit better. And then also it does help water from evaporating off as well, because once the water's down into that soil, it would have to evaporate up through the mulch to get out, so it can kind of hold it a little bit better too. Yeah.
Cool, thank
Yeah.
you.
So true. Okay. So okay. Yeah, so we're to the tree guard, and we actually only have a couple more points. So you're going to want to pick up any trash that was around. If you're in a big tree planting, typically you can leave everything in kind of tidy piles next to sites if there's too much. Or, you can throw all the trash in the pot and haul the pot with you. By the end of it, you have a couple nesting pots and you have trash in the top pot, right? Or you can leave it on site and they will pick up after you. They'll tell you and just follow whatever they're telling you. And then finally, we always like to end with naming our tree. So if you'll remember, our little dogwood we planted was named Rosie. She was wonderful and she went to her next home. And so it can be really nice just to have like a funny, goofy moment, right? And you can go through all sorts of names. And if you have a lot of trees, by the 10th one, they're going to be named weird things, right? And that's delightful unto itself. So remember, in the end, we want to keep people safe and we want to keep people coming back, right? Tree planting is not rocket science. You can do it, they can do it, and you guys can do it together. So, do we have any questions about this section? Yeah.
I have a question about using those self-watering things.
Like the gators?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called. Like
Yeah.
the bag of water.
The bag of water in it, yeah.
Are those used? Is there something wrong
Yeah, and you can probably explain your logic about it better, but they're just not free.
Right.
They're yeah.
They're not free, and it's also an added maintenance thing. So that's why, like, we don't tend to use them just because we can't guarantee that anyone's gonna be coming by, like, pour water into paper bags. I will say I don't like, you've probably also seen the city used to use these basically, tree diapers. It was like diaper material in a cone, or like in a donut shape that they would put around. But then they would just leave it there forever, and then you come and the tree would be like growing over it, and you have to like dig it out. We kind of just like to stick with mulch, and I think, it's part of the contract this year, right?
Yeah.
Planting will water them. We have a ton of paper bags if you're ever interested. Like, you want to try it, like this tree was planted really late in the season, and I'm worried about it, as it establishes itself through the summer, you know, we have paper bags that you could use. It's just one of those things you have to keep an eye out for. They're also a great habitat for critters, which is another reason that a lot of people don't like them. Stuff crawls inside and lives there.
Yeah, the general trend I've seen is like anytime you introduce something where like the next step is, and then someone comes back and cares for it, I think that step gets cut, right? Like, because I think that's hard. I think it's hard. And so it's better, especially even if you're planting on your own property, it's better to, it's one of the reasons I would really encourage you to plant smaller, right? Because smaller and smaller and smaller, right? What we know is that if I plant a tree that's this tall, and if I plant a tree that's this tall, by the time this one has gotten over the shock, and by the time this one's kind of dealt with all of it, this one will be about this tall. And it'll be well rooted and well established. And also those smaller trees oftentimes can handle the adversity of maybe not getting exactly what they need right when they need it, because they also don't have as much above ground to support, right? Whereas a big tree, if it has all this mass above ground that it has to support, if it misses a water, that's a little bit harder than if there's a smaller amount of mass above ground to support. If that makes sense. Yeah. Awesome! You guys made it! That's it! Okay, so... Whoa! All right. It's all very, very exciting, and I love that for us. So I'm going to call out your names and have to run around the room to try and find you. So, okay, so we have... I'm sorry about your first names and last names. I'm trying really hard. But Chelsea Azevedo. Yeah. All right. We have Robin Dixler. Awesome. Emily Crockett. Oh, Sarah Cross. You are next. All right, Julie Blank. Yeah. Woo! Catherine Davenport. I know that one. Awesome. Justin Fry. Shelby King. We have Ann King. Katie Kovac. Yeah. Awesome. Vanessa Olden. Congrats. Elizabeth Salzberger. She's always part of my every activity somehow ends with me running around. Ida Sodek. Yay. Autumn Soul. Alicia Underhill. Yay. Mel Williams. And Tiffany, is that a turn? Woo! Did I miss anyone? Oh, yay for me! Woo! Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. So you will be getting emails from Mason and the Keep Darn Beautiful team. All these opportunities will be coming out. And just to totally confirm, if you are a master gardener, you know who you are. Any tree keeper opportunities can be counted toward your hours. So I really encourage that. And so please, as you guys have more questions, I am always here. This is literally my job, is to answer your questions, so keep them coming, and I'm sure I'll hear from you all in the future.
Thank you.